Hi friends, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you are all doing well. We are passing through the month of Zilhajj and I wish to take this opportunity to tell you about Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam. Allama Iqbal Rahmatullah alayh, the great poet of the East, wrote a couplet in praise of Ibrahim alayhis salam's faith. आज भी हो जो बराहीम का ईमा पैदा, आज भी हो जो बराहीम का ईमा पैदा, आग कर सकती है अंदाज़े गुलिस्तां पैदा. These lines are taken from Jawab-e-Shikwa, the great poem by Allama Iqbal. Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam's life is very much relevant during the month of Zilhajj. The Quran relates about him and his unwavering faith. It also underlines the various hardships that he bore to please his Creator. Since his childhood, Ibrahim's heart had been full of hatred for idols. He could not understand how a sane person could make a statue and then worship what he had made. Ibrahim's people had a big temple full of idols in the middle of which was a place accommodating the biggest god. They were of different kinds, qualities and shapes. Ibrahim alayhis salam, who used to go to the temple with his father when he was a child, greatly despised all that wood and stone. What surprised him was the way his people behaved when they entered the temple. They bowed and started to cry, begging and imploring their gods for help, as if the idols could hear or understand these requests. Once Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam approached his uncle, who was like a father to him, and advised him to worship Allah and abandon the idols. However, he only earned hatred from people for his message. Although he was unsuccessful with Azar and his family, Ibrahim alayhis salam did not lose hope and began preaching to the people. He would teach people that only Allah, the creator of the heavens and earth, should be worshipped. Only a few people listened to him and began worshipping Allah. One night, Ibrahim alayhis salam left his house. He walked alone in the dark until he reached a cave in the mountain. He looked at the sky. He started thinking what was beyond the moon, the stars, and the planets, and was astonished that these celestial bodies were worshipped by men when they had been created to worship and obey their Creator, appearing and disappearing at his command. He saw a star and said, "This is my Lord." But when it set, he said, "I like not those that set." When he saw the moon rising up, he said, "This is my Lord." But when it set, he said, "Unless my Lord guides me, I shall surely be among the erring people." When he saw the sun rising up, he said, "This is my Lord, this is greater." But when it set, he said, "O my people, I am indeed free from all that you join as partners in worship with Allah. Verily, I have turned my face towards Him who has created the heavens and the earth, and I am not of al-mushrikeen." Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam proved to the people that the Lord of the worlds was not to be found in the creations that their idols represented, but was rather the entity who created them. Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam proved that the Lord does not necessarily need to be seen in order to be worshipped. He is an all-able Lord, not bound by limitations as the creations found in this world are. He openly questioned people's adherence to mere traditions of their forefathers. Ibrahim's reasoning helped to reveal the truth, and the conflict between him and his people began, for the worshippers of the stars and planets did not stand mute. They began arguing and threatening Ibrahim alayhis salam. Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam said to them, "Why dispute with me concerning Allah while He has guided me? I fear not those whom you associate with Allah in worship. Nothing can happen to me except when my Lord wills something. My Lord comprehends in His knowledge all things. Will you not then remember? And how should I fear those whom you associate in worship with Allah? While you fear not that you have joined in worship with Allah things for which he has not sent down to you any authority? Which of the two parties has more right to be in security? If you, but no, it is those who believe, and confuse not their belief with zulm. For them there is security, and they are the guided. This was Prophet Ibrahim's response to those who were worshipping celestial bodies. Prophet Ibrahim's path was to be filled with pain, hardship, trial, opposition, and heartache. His father and people rejected his message. His call fell on deaf ears. They would not reason. Instead, he was challenged and mocked. Allah gave Prophet Ibrahim a.s. the reasoning he needed the first time and every time he argued with his people. Prophet Ibrahim a.s. did his best to make his people heedful to the belief in the oneness of Almighty Allah and to the worship of Him alone. He bade them to firmly renounce the worship of idols. He said to his father and his people, "What are these images to which you are devoted?" They said, "We found our fathers worshipping them." He said, "Indeed, you and your fathers have been in manifest error." They said, "Have you brought us the truth, or are you one of those who play about?" He said, "Nay, your Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth, who created them, and of that I am one of the witnesses." As a young man with a prospective future, Prophet Ibrahim a.s. opposed his own family and nation in order to propagate a message of true monotheism, belief in the one true Allah, and rejection of all other false deities. He was rejected, outcast, and punished for this belief, but he stood firm against all evil, ready to face even more in the future. It was a strenuous struggle for Prophet Ibrahim a.s. The most amazed and furious was his father. Ibrahim a.s. felt that it was his duty as a good son to advise his father against this evil so that he could be saved from Allah's punishment. But a wise son did not make his father feel foolish, nor did he openly laugh at his conduct. He told him that he loved him, thereby hoping to generate fatherly love. Then he gently asked him why he worshipped lifeless idols who could not hear, see, or protect him. Before his father could become angry, he hastily asked him to follow the path of true worship and discard his baseless beliefs. However, his father got furious and asked him to stop rejecting his gods, or else he would stone his own son. Hearing this, Prophet Ibrahim a.s. only said that he would pray to Allah for forgiveness. Prophet Ibrahim's father's harsh treatment did not stop him from delivering the message of truth. Angry and sad to see people prostrate before idols, he was determined to stamp out these practices and went to the town to debate with the people, knowing full well that he might suffer harm. Like a wise doctor searching for the cause of a sickness so as to prescribe the proper cure, or like a judge who questions the accused sharply so that he might detect the truth, Ibrahim a.s. asked them, "Do the idols see you when you prostrate before them? Do they benefit you in any way?" The idolaters quickly tried to defend their beliefs. They argued that they knew their idols were lifeless, but that their forefathers had worshipped them. To them, this was proof enough for their belief. Prophet Ibrahim a.s. explained that their forefathers had been wrong. This angered people even more. However, Prophet Ibrahim a.s. showed no fear. To convince them that the idols could not harm him, he challenged, "I have already condemned them. If they had any power, they would have harmed me by now." Prophet Ibrahim a.s. explained to the people the beauty of Allah's creation, His power and wisdom. However, people would not give up but clung fast to idolatry. So Ibrahim a.s. left his father's house and abandoned his people and what they worshipped. He decided to do something about their state of disbelief. He knew that there was going to be a great celebration on the other bank of the river, which would be attended by all the people. Ibrahim alayhis salam waited until the city was empty. Then he came out cautiously, directing his steps towards the temple. The streets leading to it were empty and the temple itself was deserted, for the priests had also gone to the festivals outside the city. Ibrahim alayhis salam went there carrying a sharp axe. He looked at the stone and wood statues of the gods and the food laid in front of them as offerings. He approached one of the statues and asked, "The food in front of you is getting cold. Why don't you eat?" The statue kept silent and rigid. Ibrahim alayhis salam asked the other statues around them, "Will you not eat?" He was mocking them, for he knew that they would not eat. He once again asked them, "What is the matter with you that you do not speak?" With this, Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam tried to prove the worthlessness of idols. However, he knew that nothing is said in words would affect the people. Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam knew that the people needed a harsh treatment to understand the true path of worship. At the temple, he raised his axe and started smashing the false gods worshipped by the people. He destroyed them all except one, on whose neck he hung the axe. After this, his anger subsided and he felt at peace. He left the temple. He had fulfilled his vow to show his people a practical proof of their foolishness in worshipping something other than Allah. When the temple priests returned, they were shocked to see the sacrilege and the destruction of the temple. They were wondering who could have done this to their idols, and someone mentioned the name of Ibrahim alayhis salam, explaining that he used to speak ill of them. When they called him to their presence, it was for Ibrahim alayhis salam to show them their foolishness. He said, "Worship you that which you yourselves do carve when Allah has created you and what you make." However, the anger of people just knew no bounds. Seeing the idols destroyed, the anger of people was mounting. They were in no mood for being preached to. They got straight to the point, asked Prophet Ibrahim, "Is it you who has done this to our gods?" "O Ibrahim," this was precisely what Ibrahim alayhis salam had been aiming for, so that he could show them up in public their foolish belief. Smilingly, he told them to ask the biggest idol, which was still whole. He told them that he must be the culprit. He said, "But their chief has done it, so question them if they can speak." When Ibrahim alayhis salam so challenged them, the people were cast into confusion. They replied that he knew well that the idol could not speak or move, which gave Ibrahim alayhis salam the chance to prove the foolishness of worshipping these lifeless objects. Then they realized the senselessness of their beliefs. However, their arrogance would not allow them to admit their foolishness. All they could do was use their power of authority, as tyrants usually do, to punish Ibrahim alayhis salam. They kept him in chains and planned their revenge. Anger was burning in the hearts of people. They decided to throw Ibrahim alayhis salam into the biggest fire they could build. All the citizens were ordered to gather wood as a service to their gods. Ignorant Sikh women vowed that if they were cured, they would donate wood to burn Ibrahim alayhis salam. For several days they collected fuel. They dug a deep pit, filled it with firewood and ignited it. They brought a catapult with which to cast Ibrahim alayhis salam into the fire. Ibrahim alayhis salam was put on the catapult, his hands and feet tied. The fire was ready with its flames reaching the sky. The people stood away from the pit because of the great heat. Then the chief priest gave his order to cast Ibrahim alayhis salam into the fire. The young Ibrahim alayhis salam was ready to submit himself to the fate chosen for him by the Lord of the worlds. He did not lose faith, rather the trial made him stronger. Prophet Ibrahim salam did not flinch in the face of a fiery death even at this tender age. Rather, his last words before entering it were, Allah is sufficient for me and He is the best disposer of affairs. Everything was set to throw Prophet Ibrahim salam into fire. He too was ready to face what the Lord had wished for him. Just then Angel Jibreel came near Ibrahim's head and asked him, "O Ibrahim, do you wish for anything?" Prophet Ibrahim salam replied, "Nothing from you." The catapult was shot and Prophet Ibrahim salam was cast in the fire. But his descent into the blaze was like a descent on steps in a cool garden. The flames were still there, but they did not burn, for Allah the Almighty had issued His command, "O fire, be you cool and safe for Ibrahim salam." The fire submitted to the will of Allah, becoming cool and safe for Ibrahim salam. It only burned his bonds, and he sat in the midst of the fire as if he was sitting in a garden. He glorified and praised Allah the Almighty with a heart that contained only his love for Allah. There was not any vacant space therein for fear, awe, or worry. It was filled with love only. The fire ordeal proved that fear and awe were dead for Prophet Ibrahim salam. The fire was turned into coolness, making the air pleasant. Those who love Allah like Prophet Ibrahim salam do not fear. Prophet Ibrahim's belief in the true Allah was tested here, and he proved that he was even prepared to surrender his existence to call of Allah. His belief was evidenced by his action. Allah had not willed that this be the fate of Ibrahim salam, for he had a great mission ahead of him. He was to be the father of some of the greatest prophets known to humanity. Allah saved Ibrahim salam as a sign for him and his people as well. Thus Ibrahim salam escaped from the fire unharmed and became even stronger in his mission. The disbelievers had tried to seek revenge for their gods, but they and their idols were in the end humiliated. As the fire was turned cool inside the pit, the throng, the chiefs, and the priests who sat watching the fire from a distance felt it was burning their faces and nearly suffocating them. The fire kept burning for such a long time that the disbelievers thought it would never be extinguished. When it did burn out, they were greatly amazed to find Ibrahim salam coming out of the pit untouched by the fire. Their faces were black from the smoke, but his was bright with the light and grace of Allah. The raging fire had become cool for Ibrahim salam and had only charred the ropes which held him. He walked out of the fire as if he were walking out of a garden. Cries of astonishment were heard from the heathens. They wanted to harm him, but Allah made them the worst losers. This miracle shamed the tyrants, but it did not cool the flame of anger in their hearts. However, after this event, many of the people followed Ibrahim salam, although some kept their belief a secret for fear of harm or death at the hands of the rulers. News of Prophet Ibrahim's safe walk out of fire reached far and wide. He had established a definite reasoning against idolaters. Nothing was left for him except to reason against the people who proclaimed themselves gods. When King Namrud heard of Ibrahim's safe exit from the fire, he became very angry. He feared that the status of godhood he had proclaimed for himself was now challenged by an ordinary human being. He summoned Ibrahim salam to the palace and held a dialogue with him. In a way, the jealous and angry king threatened him again. Hearing the king, Ibrahim salam said, "My Lord Allah is He who gives life and causes death." This infuriated the king even more, and he said, "I give life and cause death." Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam challenged, "Verily, Allah causes the sun to rise from the east, then cause you to rise from the west?" The king just had no explanation to support his self-proclaimed superiority. It was another message from Allah that the disbeliever was utterly defeated. Allah guides not the people who are zalimeen. Prophet Ibrahim's fame spread throughout the kingdom. People talk about how he had been saved from the blazing fire and how he had debated with the king and left him speechless. In the meantime, Ibrahim alayhis salam continued calling people to believe in Allah, exerting a great effort to guide his people to the right path. He tried every means to convince them. However, in spite of his love and care for his people, they felt angry and deserted him. Only one woman and one man of his people shared his belief in Allah. The woman's name was Sarah and she became his wife. The man's name was Lut and he became a prophet. When Prophet Ibrahim alayhis salam realized that no one else was going to believe in his call, he decided to emigrate. He left his people and traveled with his wife and Lut to the land of Canaan or Greater Syria. Ibrahim alayhis salam stayed in Canaan for several years, preaching to people until a famine forced him and Sarah to migrate to Egypt. In Egypt, there was a despotic ruler called Pharaoh who always desired to puzzle married women. Someone informed the tyrant about Ibrahim and Sarah. He called Sarah for the evil purpose, but whenever he approached her, his hands got stiff, so that he had to plead to Sarah to pray for his cure. He called a guard who had brought Sarah and said, "You have not brought me a human being but a devil." Then he gave Hajar as a maid to Sarah and sent her back. Since Sarah did not get any offspring, she gifted Hajar to her husband, suggesting to him to take her as his wife. This was the common practice of those times. While in Palestine, Hajar bore Ibrahim alayhis salam a son who was named Ismail. Years later, Sarah also bore a son to Ibrahim alayhis salam whose name was Ishaq. When Ismail alayhis salam was still nursing, Allah yet again chose to test the faith of his beloved Ibrahim alayhis salam and commanded him to take Hajar and Ismail alayhis salam to a barren valley of Bakka, 700 miles southeast of Hebron. In later times, it was called Makkah. Indeed, it was a great test for him. His family had longed for such a long time for an offspring, and when their eyes were filled with this joy, the commandment was enacted to take him to a distant land known for its barrenness and hardship. So Ibrahim alayhis salam, after having sojourned with Hajar and Ismail alayhis salam, left them there with a skin of water and leather bag full of dates. Ibrahim alayhis salam knew that it was Allah's wish and command. He had complete and unwavering faith in him. He was sure that Allah would not take away from him that which he had granted. As Ibrahim alayhis salam began walking away, leaving Hajar and Ismail alayhis salam behind, Hajar became anxious as to what was happening. Ibrahim alayhis salam did not look back. Hajar chased him, calling, "O Ibrahim, where are you going, leaving us in this valley where there is no person whose company we can enjoy, nor is there anything here?" Ibrahim alayhis salam hurried his pace. Finally, Hajar asked, "Has Allah asked you to do so?" Suddenly, Ibrahim alayhis salam stopped, turned back and said, "Yes." Feeling a degree of comfort in this answer, Hajar asked, "O Ibrahim, to whom are you leaving us?" "I am leaving you to Allah's care," Ibrahim alayhis salam replied. Hajar submitted to her Lord and said, "I am satisfied to be with Allah." Hajar too was a believer. She too had complete faith in Allah and was aware that Allah would take care of her and Ismail alayhis salam. She traced her way back to Little Ismail. After Hajar had gone back, Ibrahim salam proceeded until he reached a narrow pass in the mountain where they would not able to see him. He stopped there and invoked Allah in prayer. Our Lord, I have settled my offspring in a valley barren from any cultivation by your sacred house, so they may establish the prayer. So make the hearts of people yearn towards them and provide them with all types of fruits that they may be grateful. However, soon the water and dates were gone and Hajar's desperation increased. Unable to quench her thirst or to breastfeed her little baby, Hajar began searching for water. Leaving Ismail salam under a tree, she began climbing the rocky incline of a nearby hill. Maybe there is a caravan passing, she thought to herself. She ran between the two hills of Safa and Marwa 7 times, looking for signs of water or help. Latter personified were all Muslims in Hajj. Fatigued and distraught, she heard a voice but could not locate its source. Then, looking down in the valley, she saw Angel Jibril standing next to Ismail salam. Hajar was astonished and at the same time full of reverence when she saw the angel Jibril next to little Ismail salam. The angel dug into the ground with his heel next to the baby and water come gushing out. It was a miracle. Hajar tried to make a basin around it to keep it from flowing out in order to fill her skin. Do not be afraid of, for this is the house of Allah which will be built by this boy and his father, and Allah never neglects his people. The well was given the name Zamzam. It is flowing to this day in the city of Makkah in the Arabian Peninsula. It was not long afterwards that the tribute of Jurham moving from southern Arabia stopped by the valley of Makkah after seeing the unusual sight of a bird flying in that direction, which could only mean the presence of water. They eventually settled in Makkah and Ismail salam grew up among them. It had been close to 10 years since Ibrahim salam had left his wife and baby in Makkah in the care of Allah. After a 2 month journey, he was surprised to find Makkah a lot different from how he had left it. His joy knew no bounds when he saw his son and Hajar once again. However, the joy of reunion was soon interrupted by a vision which was to be the ultimate test of his faith. Allah commanded Ibrahim salam through a dream to sacrifice his son, the son he had after years of prayers and had just met after a decade of separation. Now this was a test meant for Ibrahim salam and his son Ismail salam. Since Allah promised to give Sarah a child from Ibrahim salam and grandchildren from that child, it is neither logically nor practically possible for Allah to command Ibrahim salam to sacrifice Ishaq salam, as Allah neither breaks his promise nor is he the author of confusion. Ibrahim's trust in Allah was once again being tested. He consulted his son to see if he understood what was commanded by Allah. "O my dear son, I have seen in a dream that I must sacrifice you. So look, what think you?" Hearing this, Ismail salam said, "O my father, do that which you are commanded. Allah willing, you shall find me of the patient." Indeed, if a person was told by their father that they were to be killed due to a dream, it would not be taken in the best of manners. One may doubt the dream as well as the sanity of the person, but Ismail salam knew his father. The pious son of a pious father was committed to submit to Allah. Both Ismail alayhi salam and Ibrahim alayhi salam trusted Allah and knew that they fit perfectly in Allah's big plan for them. Neither of them had a second of doubt about Lord Almighty. As commanded, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam took his son to the place where he was to be sacrificed and laid him face down. Just as Ibrahim's knife was poised to descend, a voice stopped him. Indeed, it was the greatest test of all, the sacrificing of his only child, one born to him after he had reached an old age and years of longing for progeny. Here, Ibrahim alayhi salam showed his willingness to sacrifice all his belongings for Allah, and for this reason he was designated a leader of all humanity, one whom Allah blessed with a progeny of prophets. Further, to complete the sacrifice, Ismail alayhi salam was ransomed with a ram. It is this epitome of submission and trust in Allah which hundreds of millions of Muslims reenact every year during the days of Hajj, a day called Yawm an-Nahr, the day of sacrifice, or Eid ul-Adha, or the celebration of sacrifice.